I was. Don't remind me.
Representing.
When were you born?
93.
Oh, Christ.
1893.
1893.
Yeah.
That, I think, pretty sure if you were born in 1890, that would make you the oldest human on the planet.
I mean, you know, I look good for my age.
That'd be pretty cool, though, wouldn't it?
I don't know about pretty cool. It'd be, I don't
This is a perfect intro. I think you would have seen.
Well, yeah, you know, welcome to the show. I'm Gabriel.
I'm Daniel.
And this is whatever we still haven't got a title yet.
Yeah, we'll probably maybe go with something like.
If this gets published, comment what you think the title should be below. What?
Yeah, like drop it in the comment box. Try not to be too harsh.
I mean, we could call it undisclosed location.
Yeah.
Because that's what it is.
Could call it NDA.
Oh man, that's a little on the nose, don't you think?
Well, maybe. I don't know.
You didn't hear that?
No, scratch that. That will be removed in editing.
I'm shaking my head, everyone.
For the radio listeners.
I'm shaking my head. Audio description is fully on in today's .wav file? I don't know.
Okay, so I mean, should we have got a topic for today, haven't we?
I mean, we could talk about my sick football moves last night.
Your sick football moves are just that. They're likely to cause injury.
Okay, so people do get sick watching them. Little bit of context, back up, zoom out, reframe the situation. Yeah, me and Dan playing a bit of friendly five-a-side with the boys from work.
Three-a-side.
Okay, last night it was three-a-side, but not all the boys from work show up.
Yeah. To give you guys a better understanding, I'm veering towards middle 30s, out of shape parent. So naturally Adonis-like.
I always thought you were late 20s.
Oh, that's very sweet of you. And Gabriel is
words cannot describe what I am.
I without being harsh, I kind of want to say doughy. But
I wish I could shrug audibly, you know.
But that description belies an unrelenting pursuit of other individuals when they possess the ball.
If you listen real hard, you can hear the shovel scrape as he continues to dig.
I think I might have just hit the lithosphere. little geology joke there for the geologists listening in.
I'll let my brother know.
Yeah, so Gabriel is a very physical footballer, but last night he managed to injure himself. Yeah,
well, it was all a successful last-ditch attempt to keep possession of the ball.
Yeah.
By falling over it, I ensured that no one could take it from me.
Valiant moves. I think valiant is definitely the word.
and I kept possession of it for a good 30 seconds after.
You did. And you know what? You did a much better job of keeping possession of that ball than many people I might have known, and across many genres. I can think of people in films that lacked the kind of possession that you required. I'm thinking mainly about Frodo.
I'm just thinking about people being possessed now.
Oh no, let's not get onto exorcism.
I saw, speaking of horror films, a movie called A Quiet Place 2 nights ago.
You actually saw it?
Yeah, I actually saw it. Went out with a couple of people from work.
Uh-huh.
Went to the movies, which is the place you see movies now.
I'm guessing you went in a Cadillac, dropped down, open air.
I mean,
I've seen that. I've seen people go to the movies in movies. That's what it's like, right?
I call my push bike the Cadillac. Does that count? The top's always down.
So how was it? I've seen the trailer for it. This is Emily Watson or Emily.
Emily Blunt, I believe.
Yeah, there's a lot of Emilys these days. So
I'm gonna cheat and look up the cast.
Yeah, it does look good. It's I actually thought it was from the trailer. I don't know why. I think I'd seen like a Cloverfield trailer previously, like the Cloverfield Paradox, and I kind of thought it was somehow leading on from that, but it's not, is it? It's
completely the same thing.
Oh, it is completely the same thing. Okay.
Completely its own thing.
Oh, its own thing. Okay, okay.
Completely its own thing.
So tell us about this film.
So it stars John Krasinski.
Uh-huh.
And Emily Blunt, the adult actors, and a couple of children, Noah Jupe and Millicent Simmons.
Okay.
and they get the majority of the screen time.
Let's just quickly throw something out there, because I imagine this is going to be spoilers.
Okay, yeah, I'll throw out spoilers as we get to them. Let's give a spoiler-free setup, and then.
So what's it about? What's the pretext of the film?
So pretext is we are following a family, the daughter of whom is deaf.
Okay.
And so they communicate almost exclusively in ASL. And to begin with, we don't know why. Maybe they're just super vigilant, or maybe they're all deaf, but it turns out that's not the case.
Okay.
Just the daughter. In a sort of 1 month and then 1 year after end of the world kind of scenario, there are monsters, and they are really good at hearing. So you don't make noise, because when you make noise, they get you.
Any noise?
If you breathe too loudly, that's what we're talking about here.
So
if you trip.
For someone that hasn't obviously seen this film and is basing his entire knowledge on trailer,
I've not seen the
trailer.
trailer.
There are a lot of noisy bodily functions.
I've not seen the trailer.
Okay, but you've seen the film.
I heard good things. I went to watch a movie. So sue the millennial for doing the non-millennial thing.
Well, what I'm suggesting is that on the pretext of the film, that your choice of meal might result in your death.
Yeah, if you're out in the open.
I mean, if you make a bad call and only find kidney beans.
I mean, yeah, pretty much. Weirdly, although that's not addressed in the film, weirdly. So yeah, it's a monster movie. There's a couple of situations. Emily Blunt plays a very heavily pregnant woman. Mm-hmm. So you can already see there being a potential issue that will come up over the runtime of the film. Yeah. If you've got to be quiet and. You know.
Well, yeah. How are you going to go ahead being quiet while you give birth?
That happens.
I mean, we could definitely ask Tom Cruise about this. I mean,
I'm not going to comment. Partly because I don't know.
Throw out to Scientology there.
Shout out to the science.
No, not Scientology. It's a very different thing.
No, shout out to them. No, it is a good film. It's had me gripped, hiding behind my jumper for a good half of it.
Really?
Yeah. I mean, I'm easily spooked, but yeah.
If on a 1 to 10 scale of behind the sofa, what would you say?
Okay, so what's 10 and what's 1?
1 is like complete boredom. There's like it's about as jumpy as a Thomas the Tank episode. 10 is you've left the theatre and are paranoidly looking for a cab.
I'm gonna put it at about an 8.
Well, that's pretty scary.
I was solidly spooked and a bit nervous about the thought of being at home alone that night.
Really? Well, okay. So
yeah, and then I got home and I was fine, but
you had some
in the immediate 5 minutes after the film, spooked.
Yeah.
And go on record now, Gabriel Durnley, easily spooked.
But then you're
I'm easily spooked.
Do you think you could survive in that kind of a world?
No.
I'm
a very loud person, Dan.
Well, no.
Maybe not on my own, but I will.
You could communicate through memes.
They also didn't have the internet.
Well, that's a problem.
Yeah, I'm done for.
Yeah.
No, it's pretty good. I suppose spoilers, spoil. Not too heavy because I want Dan to watch it and enjoy it.
Yeah.
Bring the twins.
Well, I mean.
No.
Yeah.
But no, it was really good, and it was the idea of. It was quite tight, only 6 people, 2 of which had barely any screen time. So, tight family drama. They get around things like they'll have lots of mattresses against the wall to soundproof something. They have a basement.
So do they stay in the same place? Like they're in a house? And
yeah.
They're just trying to keep it quiet?
Yeah.
Okay.
Because it has also only been a year.
Yeah.
So they haven't quite gotten to the...
Oh yeah, how are you going to raise a baby in this situation? I guess.
Well...
I mean, I as a relatively new parent, I can attest that there's very little way of keeping a young newborn quiet.
I think certainly a little bit of it was fictional, but there were a few moments which I was like, oh man, I'm not sure how much I'd advocate this. Yeah. A box with a breathing hole and an oxygen tank. So the baby's quiet and has air.
Yeah.
But at the same time, oh snap, It's not. It wouldn't be a fun place, but that's kind of the point.
It kind of sounds like a very not similar script, but like a similar sort of scenario to The Road. Have you ever seen The Road?
I've not seen The Road. Now it's your turn to fill me in.
Well, I will do the spoilers thing as well, but I mean...
Spoilers for The Road!
So if you don't want to hear about what The Road's about...
You just got to drive on past to the next bit. We'll put timestamps in the description.
Yeah, so The Road's it's kind of similar story, post-apocalyptic, I think a couple of years after. It's, what's the... Aragorn, the actor. Viggo Mortensen.
What a name! I can't believe I never remember his name.
On a separate note, if for any reason my parents end up listening to this, why did you not name me Viggo? What a name! But anyway, so he plays like a father, and the film kind of starts off with him and his wife and his child. And some things happened, you don't know what, but the world's in chaos and everything's going wrong, and there's like hurricane winds outside. And it's a really sad story about, and then his wife takes her life and kills herself. And then so he's just left to him and his son, and like, what does he do? Does he follow in her footsteps? Do they sort of, does he sort of give up? And it's the story of his road and him and his son trying to make their way through this cannibalistic, tribal world where they're the hunted and the preyed upon, and there's no hope. Like if you're looking for an uplifting film, this is not the film to watch. It's just 24/7 bad times. there's no, but like you kind of do get the impression that like how humanity can strive to continue to go on.
Well, yeah. I mean, if there's no hope, I will be honest. I watch films partly for catharsis, and a film without hope does not seem to. It doesn't pull me in, much like The Passion of the Christ doesn't really entice me to watch it.
Yeah.
Not uplifting.
Well, you know the story anyway, don't you?
That's a film you watch for the execution, not for the surprise plot twist. Yeah. Judas, how could you?
Yeah. Although, I mean, you could say The Passion of the Christ was quite artsy. I mean, it was definitely sort of like quite sort of artistic in its. I mean, it was brutal.
It was a passion project. Let's leave it at that.
Yeah, what was it, Jim Caviezel? Was it Jim Caviezel? Like, props to him for that. He must have sat through days upon days of, okay, Rob, we're just going to hit you with a whip now. Like, yeah,
I mean, Leonardo DiCaprio's performance in Revenant as well. Sometimes you're just watching an actor survive.
Yeah, that was a good.
But that was not the case in A Quiet Place.
No,
there was legitimately good acting as well.
Really,
from both of the child actors as well. Believability in the face of the monster, good emotional range. There was grief because, spoilers, someone dies quite early on in the film, and that's still quite impactful. No, it's good. I don't want to say too much. It's scary. It's solid family vibes as well. It's not just a teen slasher.
So
it's a bit of a the term like B movie horror, like it is a monster movie.
So basically what you're saying, it's a good After Earth. So do you remember the really terrible?
I didn't even go to watch it. I'm sorry, Jaden. I didn't go and watch it.
Exactly. This is exactly the point. Like it's a good version of a post-apocalyptic After. Like, because After Earth is basically the same story. Like a family that's surviving monsters who are attracted by fear as opposed to sound and.
Oh, I don't know if I'd want that more or less. What do you reckon? It's like be quiet or just never get scared?
I think scared, because at least you could pretend or somehow pretend, and if they're attracted by fear, then just sit in a field of butterflies.
Yeah, but what about existential dread? My generation's got perhaps maybe an uncomfortable familiarity with that.
Just try to avoid any kind of newspaper relating to rent increases.
I can't live in a world without some kind of anxiety, but I can be quiet for a bit.
Yeah, but that's the point, a bit. That bit is not going to last that long, and when you're not, that's it.
I do make some interesting, again, spoiler, but some points about, if you're by a waterfall, the monsters aren't trying to eat the waterfall, they know that's fine. So you can be kind of loud there because the sound masks yours. So it's they explore the concept of, how would you live in a world where something finds you only by the noises you make.
Yeah.
And also the monster design, I quite liked it.
Yeah.
You might too. You'll have to watch it to find out.
Oh, I definitely will give it a watch.
Yeah.
Gabe's film recommendation of the week.
I watched a movie and I liked it. Points.
He hopes his boyfriend don't mind it.
If you're listening, guy I haven't yet met, that we've gone out with, I hope you like that film.
Okay, so, well, I tell you what.
I might have a boyfriend by the time this is published. You don't know. You listening at home don't know. I don't know. And speaking of Viggo Mortensen, who does know things, and
he knows many things.
Yeah, he also I wonder if he still does know the script to The Lord of the Rings.
Of course he does.
Because when you do a full film script, how much of it becomes ingrained?
Well, this is something I always found quite interesting, because like when you watch older films, well, not older films, but like when you see certain films that like have method acting, I've always been fascinated by method actors that sort of live their character.
Oh man, Daniel Day-Lewis.
Yeah, it's just phenomenal. Like the idea that you sort of you take on this character like in Gangs of New York, and you just become that person. Like imagine going into Starbucks for a coffee and you are that, like, give me a cappuccino now. Like, it's amazing. I think that's fantastic, and I wonder how many of the Lord of the Rings characters did that. Like,
I mean, for 3 films where it's not a walking holiday, but if it wasn't for the orcs, it would be a walking holiday.
Yeah, it's like a tourist guide to New Zealand, isn't
it? But I suppose in all seriousness, 3 films with commitment, you're out there in that world essentially, because I don't think Lord of the Rings had much at all by way of green screen, except for the Eagles.
Oh, and Smeagol.
Well, okay, yeah, but Andy Serkis. He... you couldn't see that, but I did when you do the kind of oh wow hand gesture. I did the oh wow hand gesture.
Yeah. We won't go. I won't in any way bring any kind of downer on Andy Serkis. He does his thing. He does his thing well.
Luke's gonna hate me, but me and Luke, we saw Andy Serkis once.
Did you?
Yeah, we got on the same flight as him to Prague.
Really?
Yeah, and I think he saw my butt.
He saw your butt.
Not my naked butt, but. Okay, let's rewind. So we got off the film. He was on the same flight as us. Claim to fame. His hair is great, by the way. Offset. He's really fantastic hair. We got off the plane and sort of in the airport. You get those little shuttle buses. Mm-hmm. They take you the 20 meters from your plane to the airport.
Yeah.
The inconsequential walk. We were getting on, and everyone was kind of jostling me and being like, Gabriel, move, take some space. And I was still asleep at this point. It was an early flight. We got up really early in the morning. For us, 4 a.m. was an early start. Listeners at home, I apologise if 4 a.m. is a late night in for you. Different folks, different strokes. But we were on the bus. I was getting jostled. And I was like, why? What's going on? Only after we got off the bus, I whispered, he was heading towards our set of doors. If I moved, he would have got in. But having seen my back, and probably my butt, having seen me from behind, he saw that I was blocking the entrance and went to the other entrance. See,
this is the thing. This story's good right now, but
Did I clickbait you a little bit?
Yeah, a little bit. But I feel like you're being harsh on, like, basically suggesting that he avoided you because he saw you from behind. I feel like
it wasn't from seeing me. It was just I was in the way. I was actually standing in the doorway.
Yeah.
So.
Well, I mean, that's still pretty cool. And so obviously you probably saw him get on the plane. And did you go up to him and chat? Or?
No. He was ways ahead of us. Understandably, he had an agent kind of making sure he had some space. Mm-hmm. If you're leaving like London Stansted and you're kind of famous, people are gonna mob you.
Yeah. Was there people asking him for autographs and stuff?
No, they kept their distance. Yeah. They might also recognise, he's a guy. He probably could have been going to see family. He could have been just going for a chill.
Well, he must have been pretty recognisable. I imagine he was in the green suit.
No. If anyone's seen any of the Marvel films that he's been in, any of his live action works, again, great actor. He's recognisable. He's got a recognisable face. No, just from a distance, like if I saw you going into the supermarket from across the street kind of distance, I'd be like, oh look, it's Dan. But I wouldn't run up and get your autograph. Not yet.
Well, yeah, I mean, give me some time,
Well, yeah,
Well, that's pretty cool. That's
also,
pretty cool.
Andy, if you're listening, sorry if I got in the way getting on board. Hope you had a nice time in Prague.
Yeah, I mean, he might have been there for Game of Thrones. You never know. Maybe he's going to appear in season 8.
Does Game of Thrones film in Prague?
Well, I think it's in like Dubrovnik and a lot of like an island. But I mean, they might do sort of. I know they do a lot of set locations in like Czechoslovakia and. So maybe. I don't know. Maybe he's going to be like a White Walker Gollum-esque character.
He could do. There are quite a few other like mocap actors with that kind of specific skill set on the rise. But no, funny you should mention Game of Thrones and obviously off the back of Lord of the Rings, because obviously Game of Thrones is going to wrap up one of these days. Hate to break it to everyone, probably by the time we publish it probably will have wrapped up.
Yeah, maybe.
But Amazon's trying to jump on the fantasy bandwagon, Dan.
Yeah, I've heard. This is one of the things we're going to talk about today. So I've
talk about roundabout ways.
Yeah, I mean, when it comes to Lord of the Rings, I've got a lot of opinions. But well, I suppose we should. Why don't you explain what we're actually going to talk about? So obviously, Lord of the Rings is it's probably out there in the press. A lot of people probably know how a lot of the Lord of the Rings stand do. But Amazon's going to be picking up miniseries. A miniseries? Is that the right term?
It's going to be a lot more of a miniseries.
Yeah, it's more of a sort of HBO style sort of run for Lord of the Rings.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, I think the contract's looking to be like 5 seasons, definitely 2.
Yeah.
And with a rumoured, again, this is the thing, a rumoured budget, but people go over budget quite a lot of the time. Obviously, last minute changes and stuff. But they're essentially throwing $1 billion at this TV show.
Yeah.
I think at the first 2 seasons, no less, to make, and literally all that I know about it in terms of official and not just dubious. Oh, he said, she said, the donut reports. Actually, it's very okay. If there's a publication called The Donut and you didn't report it, I'm sorry. Do report it though. The only official news is that there's 2 to 5 seasons. Peter Jackson might be on board as a producer.
That's pretty cool, because I think he might make if it was going to happen, I think you'd want him to be involved somewhere, like to keep some kind of continuation.
So it's not just going to be an adaptation of Tolkien's books and writings and poems and languages. It's a whole world written.
What is it actually going to be focusing on? Do you know what it's? I know you've been reading a lot about it. Is it so? Because I would, if I'd have seen, I don't know. Obviously, I'm not. But if I was writing it, I would have gone the sort of Silmarillion route, sort of talking about backstory and like more sort of mythology of Lord of the Rings rather than the contemporary story of it, like the ring travels to Mordor, and they probably could have just got an eagle to drop it in the volcano.
What I absolutely love, contemporary story of when they went and dropped the ring off.
Well, it happened.
I suppose, relatively speaking, that is the most modern story of the whole, I guess, pantheon of Tolkien. No, there's nothing plot-wise that's been officially released from Amazon. I think it's literally they bought rights, as well as rights to Jackson's adaptation film-wise, which kind of makes sense, so that it feels like the same world or shared it.
Yeah.
A lot of other reporters have kind of thrown their hats into the ring, of course, 2 cents, and they're kind of along the similar route of don't tell or retell or even really kind of involve too much from Peter Jackson's Lord of the Rings trilogy. I personally would say don't touch anything to do with The Hobbit as well. Leave that well enough alone.
Well, yeah, because if you start if they start touching on the same
retreading
subject,
old ground.
Yeah, and you're going to alter it. Like, I've got a huge issue with the way that obviously like the Star Wars prequels and sequels have changed the whole mythos of the Star Wars universe. I mean, there's plenty of issues with it, but the fact that they tell the same story, it changes it, and I'm not so keen on that. And I, as much as the Lord of the Rings sort of
now, when you say tell the same story, do you mean that it's always a flippin' Death Star, or do you mean Episode 4 has been recut so many times?
Yeah, well, okay, so to any Star Wars fans at home, brace yourselves. Sidebar
into Star Wars bar.
So objectively, Star Wars is a pretty dumb movie. Like, I mean, basically they label things what they are. It's a Death Star. There's this magical force. What are we going to call it? The Force. Like a lot of like we've got like these swords that are made of like it's a lightsaber. Like a lot of the stuff is very basic, and that was fine when it was like
1970.
Yeah, that was fine when it was the 1970s.
Well, when you're building off of something built in the 19, I mean.
But no. Bear in mind, bear with me. So I'm not that. Yes, okay, that was poor, but then people sort of accepted that. It was like, okay, that's not great, but you know what? It's a good story. And then you got Empire Strikes Back, and it was like, wow, this is great storytelling.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, it's great twists. Like, and then you got Return of the Jedi, which was it's okay. But then you've got the prequels come along, and
are you saying Return of the Jedi was the Spider-Man 3 of Star Wars?
I wouldn't go that far. All I'm saying is that Ewoks for the win. You know.
I just want some clickbait, Dan. I just want a clickbait title to this podcast, and you know, Return of the Jedi was the Spider-Man 3 of Star Wars. It's a pretty darn good title.
I'm gonna like give myself plausible deniability by the fact that I haven't seen Spider-Man 3. But so if we go along that lines, then possibly. But like Return of the Jedi was great, but there was a lot of really terrible acting. But what I mean is that you could recognise that a film in the past or a film franchise is bad. Like there's plenty of horrific acting in Star Wars. And comparable terrible acting in modern day films that you really hound, like Twilight. How badly do people talk about Twilight? But arguably, the two have got similar poor acting in both. But we sort of idolise the previous films, and that's kind of the problem. Like when you get the prequels come along, and they talk about like mitochondrion or whatever, like midichlorian, sorry. And it just recasts the mythology, and it just kind of detracts from it.
Retconning, that's the word.
It steals its gravitas, and to try to lend it sort of authority, and that's what I don't like, and that's what I don't want the new Lord of the Rings to do, because however you feel about Lord of the Rings, generally I feel that they were great, but very long.
Agreed.
I would prefer that any new story focused on something different and didn't try to steal the sort of preeminence of the originals that they created.
And do you think also maybe cash in a bit on our love for it?
Yeah, that's fine. Like I get that they want to sell loads of toys and that lunchboxes and merchandise and all that.
Do they still sell lunchboxes?
I'm sure they do. I think I've still got a Jurassic Park lunchbox.
Are you going to get the girls' lunchboxes when they start school? I never had it. I did,
yes.
But.
Yeah, actually, we've just bought them little backpacks with a bumblebee and a ladybird on it with rings.
Oh, that's cute.
And I think I'm going to get them, like a little Boba Fett knitted hats.
See, there we go. That's merchandising right there.
Yeah, see, I'm fine with that. Just no Jar Jar stuff.
I feel so distant from... Do kids have lunchboxes anymore? Listen to me.
No, to be fair, what they have these days is little vegan edible snack boxes.
Are they good though? Basically, and the one question you want to ask about kids is is it tasty?
Is what tasty? The vegan edible snack box?
Yeah.
I just made that up, but copyright.
I feel like I'm about to say we're sponsored by flipping Squarespace. Now, what got me though was a few people said, why not focus on sort of things happening, like you said, beforehand, or the Silmarillion, or so like Lord of the Rings, little, not exactly tight. It wasn't epic, but it was kind of sort of a year about this ring. The Hobbit was kind of a friend of Frodo's. He was also kind of I guess like a father figure, sort of an uncle. What was Bilbo's relationship to Frodo?
Okay. So Bilbo is Bilbo Baggins lives in Bag End in the Shire, and Frodo was a nephew who he basically adopts, and then he obviously aims to pass on his fortune to him rather than to his like horrible other in-laws that try to steal his cutlery. There's a deleted scene actually from one of the Lord of the Rings, where it's not in the normal films, but it's in the extended director's cuts, where he comes back, and he's found that his in-laws have moved in and they're having like a yard sale and selling his like cutlery and tables and cheese and stuff, and he basically evicts them out. But there's loads of stuff that you don't see, like Tom Bombadil, for instance. In the books, Tom Bombadil is like a really big character who lives in Buckland Forest on the edge of the Shire, and he's a huge character in the books, but obviously you don't see him in the films. But yeah, so Bilbo's basically like that weird uncle who went off to the east and found some treasure, and then leaves his nephew without any information with the most dangerous object on the planet.
I mean, it's an unexpected journey.
Well, see, now you're quoting the new ones, which I wasn't a huge fan of, but
fair.
Yeah, there was a grimace there from Gabriel.
Yeah, I'm not a huge fan of the Hobbit films, but I am a very, very big fan of the book.
Yes.
Which, you can write me up as to every hipster ever. You may love the films, that's cool. I personally didn't. But where I was going to go with this was far and away, on a tangent, not really. The Observer wrote an article with what they thought would be 5 interesting stories to tackle. And Brandon Katz, big shout out to you, writing this on the 10th of April, 2 days ago. Credit the author. So he mentioned a few things. One of them was Numenor, yeah. Numenor, sort of an idea of Atlantis.
So quickly to fill you guys in, Numenor is an island nation that was situated between Middle-earth and the western continent, which is where the elves and the gods lived, along with the... I'm not going to go into too much depth because this gets carried over, but there's like 2 classes of god. There's the Valar and the Maiar, and the Valar are like the younger gods who are the children of Iluvatar, and the Maiar are basically the younger gods' servants. So, for instance, Gandalf is a Maiar. Yeah. He's like think of him like an angel, along with like Saruman and Radagast and the twins that went off to the east.
The wizards were angels.
Basically. And on the other side of that, you've got Sauron and Morokai.
Yeah, I think so.
Morokai or Morador. It's a Morgoth, something like that. A really evil name that you instantly know he's the bad guy.
Yeah.
But he was like the most powerful of the younger gods under Iluvatar. And he's the one that, didn't sing the right harmony and created evil and ill intent. But anyway, so those are the 2. And Sauron is his Maiar, his servant, basically, who went over to him. Also, the Balrogs that Gandalf kills one of them, those are also considered Maiar. So those are like demons, angels comparable in the top Trump's tree. And Numenor basically is when the humans are created. The humans fight back against the evil side, against Morgoth and Sauron. And they're rewarded with an island nation, Numenor, and they're given extended life, and they have this huge, sprawling like sea empire and extremely powerful nation, but they become corrupt.
Isn't it Sauron manipulates them to attack, the West, the Undying Lands?
Well, it's not necessarily to attack them, but they're told that they can basically have their way with Middle-earth and Numenor, the island, but they must never set foot upon the Western continent because that's where the younger gods live. And they basically become a bit proud and because they're sort of the king of the age.
That classic story.
And so they build like a fleet and they try to sail there, not necessarily to fight, but more to do it, like all human curiosity leads to.
Yeah.
And obviously that leads to ruin, and Numenor is sunk, and the paramount civilization of men is ended. And then from that point you're left with obviously Aragorn, who's a descendant of Numenor.
Yeah, some of them go on to fight, make Gondor, and Aragorn's kind of, also of that. So yeah, that was one of them, was the whole, I guess, the people of Numenor getting corrupted, going off and doing that. Maybe season finale or something.
I mean, that'd be really cool. I mean, you could have stories about like a king of Numenor fighting in the north against like Gundabad, and like there's so many. That's one of the wealths of the Rings. There's so many real cool stories. You could have like Arnor, which was a king of the north, king of men in the north.
Did you just say king of the north?
King of the North.
King of the North. That's already been done now.
But Arnor was like a nation. There's so many. You got the Easterlings, like the sort of the eastern men. You could talk about the southern men, the Haradrim. I mean, you could even do one that's not sort of a joke about dwarves. Like,
you could do. I mean, one thing which was I thought he was kind of hinting at was. So yeah, you could do the whole Numenor conflict and then carry on from that as like Atlantis.
Yeah.
You could do the Witch King.
Yeah.
You could do the Witch King because he was Sauron's second in command.
Mm-hmm.
Sauron kind of lost the first war. Spoilers.
That hasn't been released in the press yet.
In case you haven't come into contact with essentially modern high fantasy.
Yeah.
And to be fair, if you haven't, fair enough. When Sauron loses that first time, the Witch King's still a king of witches, and he's still got his entire kind of world of Angmar.
He's still got his bros.
Yeah.
Like and Angmar. This is an interesting thing, like because in the films you see like the Witch King in Dol Guldur, which is the city opposite.
Dol Guldur.
Yeah, like this is the city. It's the one where that big green spike goes up into the sky in the film in Return of the King, and so that's quite near like Osgiliath and Gondor, but Angmar is like a northern kingdom.
Yeah,
and so that's what I was saying about Gundabad and Arnor. They fought for centuries against each other, and he's got his own little story and about how he was imprisoned and the people he raised. I mean, leading on from that, you've obviously got the initial story. I mean, I know that in the films they touch on it, and you have
the making of the rings.
Yeah, like the temptation of man, because that I think could be a really good story.
You and the Observer are in agreement on this.
Oh, is that in the next?
That was the last one.
I haven't actually read the article, but I agree that could be a great story, like the way that Sauron actually.
Because Sauron's actually a character before then, so you could have Sauron not as just basically evil in a sick helmet.
Yeah.
Sauron as an actual living, talking person.
Yeah.
And he could come on in, and there's a temptation of men. He already tricked someone into making the rings to start with.
Well, he forged the rings.
He didn't forge all of them, I don't think.
So he forges.
Isn't the elf smith Celebrimbor?
Yes, this is quite interesting. So
Bran Borsim.
You're right. He basically corrupts one of the most powerful elven smiths to forge the rings, but he doesn't tell them why.
It's just like making this sick bling, yo.
Basically, yeah. But he forges the One Ring, which controls them. But yeah, there must have been a time where Sauron was just chilling in Barad-dûr, reading some comics, and just being like, what would be really cool? Just we need to forge some rings and sort of get these guys corrupted.
Obviously, if it was written, it would probably be given a little bit more of an epic spin than chilling in the crib, yo. Hello MTV, or welcome to my crib. Well,
I don't know. I mean, I don't know if this was before he corrupted the orcs. I think it was before he corrupted the orcs.
It was age.
I say corrupted the orcs, corrupted elves and turned them into orcs.
Yeah. Before orcs were a thing.
Yeah. So he was really playing the long game.
Yeah, well long. That could be a thing. I don't know how many. If you could get, again, it's a 5-season contract, so. This is the other thing. What would you get 5 seasons of stories out of? Another thing the Observer was saying about was the Astari, or the Angel Wizards.
Mm-hmm.
Only trouble with that, and I think what this couldn't be done, is simply Christopher Lee, bless his soul, not being with us anymore.
Yeah.
You couldn't do that. Well, I wouldn't do that.
Well, on this same point, obviously the character of Gandalf, Ian McKellen obviously, as I said, that he wants to play
Yeah.
Gandalf, and I think that'd be fantastic because
It kind of keeps the string going, but doesn't necessarily have to be.
he is Gandalf.
Yeah.
I mean, like, if I saw him in the street, I wouldn't call him Ian McKellen. I'd call him Gandalf.
He doesn't always have obviously the nose and the hair and beard. Get him, you know, Dan.
No.
Have you not seen him and Patrick Stewart on their bromances out?
I have, but that's what I mean. Like, there's that sort of continuation. But I think the Astari would be a good one. But
5 seasons worth, and what stories could you write? The last one, which I haven't discussed, is the founding of Rohan. No.
No.
All right. Well, okay. We've plundered the Observer.
The founding of Rohan. You might as well just watch Vikings on the History Channel. I mean, it's basically going to be the same thing.
Wasn't? Oh yeah, I suppose.
Okay. So, quick last point on this. I think
Last point. I thought we were just getting.
We're not last point, but like they got 5 seasons.
Yep.
Do one topic every season.
Ooh, what? And have them bleed into each other, or just a whole new thing?
Just whole new things. So you could do the first season. You could do the history of, or not the history, but like a snapshot of and get a storyline within Numenor. Second season, you could do a storyline within Angmar and the Rise of the Witch King. Third season, you could do a storyline of the Astari and their fall from grace and their fight against Sauron. Fourth season, you could do an amazing story about the twin sorcerers that lead off into the east and fight against the Easterlings and raise empires in the east. And there's so many options.
Yeah. How do you? I suppose the worry about that would be you want to bring in audiences, right? It's your TV show. It's your answer to Game of Thrones. You've got all these people who are keen on Game of Thrones. Obviously, you don't want to carbon copy it because that's boring. You don't just want to go for the Lord of the Rings fandom because obviously they like a particular thing, but they might also be a bit fickle. They might always be a bit fickle, you know. How do you bring people in and keep them on board for like 5 seasons? Admittedly, Black Mirror did that approach.
Yeah.
But again, it's sort of one full season. Will they want to watch the next season or the season after that? Will you get them to sign up to Amazon Prime Video, only something a month, every month, for just Lord of the Rings?
Well, this is the thing. I think in like 2018 or 2017 or 2016 for that matter, but basically post Game of Thrones.
Yeah.
Yes, you can, because I think before Game of Thrones, like a lot of audience wouldn't necessarily have tuned in to high fantasy.
Yeah.
Because high fantasy is for a long time, I think, been considered like a more sci-fi sort of niche genre. But
something that couldn't represent the interests of the people.
Yeah, but I think Game of Thrones has done a fantastic job of mixing this incredible depth of lore and history with political drama and intrigue and emotion and storylines. Like there's a huge mix. And maybe in the later seasons that's fallen off as George R.R. Martin's writing has been overtaken by the show.
Yeah.
But the standard is there. And if you can sort of have that, if you can create the same actual acting and drama and intrigue within the high fantasy world. Okay, one thing that I'd noticed wasn't in The Observer that I think would be a fantastic season.
Yeah, I wanted to ask if there are any things not covered by that you, Dan, would write.
Aragorn's early years.
Ooh.
So, do you remember in the film, there's a scene where...
Wasn't he Ranger?
Yeah, he was, but there's a scene where... Oh, what's the woman of Rohan, the princess of Rohan's name? Do you know the one I mean?
Give me
the one that makes the really bad soup.
Oh, wow.
Like, she comes up to him and is like, I've made this for you, it's not much, but it's warm. And he basically, like, burns his hand and pours it away.
Oh, wow. I mean, I think her name was Owen.
Oh, wait, so she says...
maybe Eowyn.
So she says basically, I was chatting to the king, and he says, you went to war with his granddad. And he's like, I did, yeah, he's got a good memory, he was only young. And she's like, well, how old are you? And she's like, 60. And he's like, 70? 80? And he's like, 89. So this guy's 89, and he's fought in wars in the past, like 50, 60, 70 years ago, with like the king of Rohan's granddad. There's a huge storyline there that no one's seen.
True.
And that we don't have plot for. And this is what I mean. You can step in and create a lore-friendly plot around a central character that doesn't necessarily affect the later storyline. All I'm asking no elves running on elephants.
Yeah, I have to admit, that was my biggest qualm with sort of the Hobbit films, was the shoehorning in of Legolas as cool things which shouldn't happen even under the ridiculous physics of Lord of the Rings. But let's tie it all together. 5 seasons. You start with maybe Numenor.
Because it's origin story.
The corruption falling down.
Mm-hmm.
Then maybe the Witch King of Angmar.
Yeah.
He becomes a bit of a subplot.
Empire Strikes Back episode. You have your Downer film.
And then you might have occasional like flashbacks to you hear tales of the other rings.
Mm-hmm.
So never the One Ring. Every so often people are like, oh yeah, the ring. Hushed whispers, bit of the music. That's it.
Mm-hmm.
You don't lean hard into it. You don't lean hard into much. It might be in those early years as well. He might visit Moria one time. There's like an episode where he goes to Moria, and it's cool.
There's no goblins.
Because it hasn't been taken over yet.
Because the dwarves haven't delved too deep.
Yeah, exactly. Because maybe we see some of the dwarven times when dwarves are actually, as you say, not comedy characters, but like, oh wow, the dwarves. This is why they're respected, and people are like, yes, dwarves, hoorah.
Yeah.
You go through that, and maybe the finale of the 5 seasons is not shortly before we see him in Lord of the Rings, but maybe like 20, 30 years before, whatever. Something shaped him to go off and become the lone wandering ranger.
Well, yeah, because there are these obvious like huge moments in his life, in his early life. Like he grows up parentless.
Yeah.
He goes to war with Rohan against orcs and against other tribal human nations and against the hill people that obviously Saruman ropes in, you see later. He goes off and fights those. He meets Arwen. He's raised in Rivendell. So you've got an early love. You've got like perfect amounts. You've got early love story. You've got protagonist. You've got antagonists. You've got hard times. You've probably got some good times.
You got a little bit of fighting going on.
He knows Gandalf, so Gandalf was probably involved at some point and probably knew him, and because Gandalf probably knew who he would become.
Yeah.
So you've got everything you need to really pull a plot together, and you don't have to rely on elves because the elves won't. I mean, they'll probably end up throwing them in, but you don't have to. That's what I'm saying. And it was also fought in the north.
So you can give whole new settings, new characters, new focus on races.
Yeah.
Could be a thing.
And you can also see why he becomes so disenfranchised from Gondor, because obviously at some point he did.
Yeah.
Like he was raised in Rivendell to become the next king of men. Yeah. So at some point he lost his faith. At some point he decided, I don't want this.
Yeah.
I'm going to go off and learn how to make kingsweed.
I absolutely love dramatic irony, but I love the long game dramatic irony. So we know who he's going to be. Yeah. And maybe we start out thinking being like, maybe he's not even called Aragorn for a while. He's got some other names that are going for him. Like,
they call him Strider, don't they?
Yeah.
So they probably just called him Strider.
So yeah, who is this kid? What's his story? What's his thing? And we follow him through. Would you have it him telling someone else and then we get the story, or do we just follow him?
I think just have Ian McKellen narrate.
That's a bit fan service. That is a little bit too much fan service for this guy.
I don't know. I think if you've got someone like Peter Jackson involved, I think that kind of all he really needs is the elements. And I would never as much as I think I could probably write a good Lord of the Rings script. I wouldn't want to suggest it. And I think if you just gave him the right elements and you told him it doesn't have to be merchandisable, make it to what you think it should be.
But there's something about TV as opposed to film.
Make it grittier. Don't make it PG, PG-13.
It doesn't have... I think the really best ones, again, what I loved about A Quiet Place was it was as horrible as it needed to be.
Exactly.
It wasn't bright. It wasn't gratuitous. It wasn't like, oh, people haven't died in a while. Let's throw them in a strip bar and fire some guns. No jokes. That happens in Bright. Spoilers.
There's very few strip bars in Rohan, to be fair.
It's kind of, don't pull your punches, but don't make it, as you say, no hope to live, pointless.
I just rather it not descend into a tourist board video, or like a scene where you never see any blood, you never see any gore, but you see orcs being decapitated all the time. Like
that was really weird.
It's
just, like they're made of stuffing.
Exactly, it just doesn't make sense. I think one of the big things that a lot of modern films lack is consequence. Like characters die in films and then are just revived, and so like
or people don't mourn them. You know, people don't go. People say your entire like town or city blows up or gets taken over in front of your eyes. You know. Insert tragic backstory here, but they quip and they move on, and it's like, no, wait, hang on. I get that there's a grace period of shock, but you know.
But what the point is how you use that shock. That's the important thing. Like I think a lot of people just create it for the sake of it, but you need to use it.
And also, you know, how does it impact someone? You lose your friend, your buddy. I mean, I think one of my favourite instances of consequence you didn't expect was John Wick.
Yeah.
His dog died.
Hey, don't go there. Don't. I'm still mourning Marley from Marley and Me, and don't even get me started on Homeward Bound.
Well, that's what I mean. Is, you know, that's consequence taken almost too far. Is this guy's dog dies, and the entire film is the consequence of that.
Yeah.
So. Yeah, no, I get what you mean. TV's quite good, as far as I know, because it doesn't tend to lean so far on the merchandising thing.
Yeah.
It seems that if they're confident that people are going to, you know, buy the streaming series to watch it, and maybe like the DVDs and whatnot, and they'll go with that. I haven't seen any Stranger Things merchandise. I haven't seen any merchandise from like American Gods or The Tick, or sort of even Orange is the New Black, because I think the network will make them. I say network, the streaming service or the company will push for it, and then they make the money back through ad revenue and streaming subscriptions and possibly selling rights to like make DVDs and stuff.
Yeah.
So yeah, as you say, tell Jackson or whoever's directing, don't care about merchandise.
Just make some good films. I won't rail on too much.
Also, Amazon Prime, if you're listening.
Yeah. Yeah, get Amazon Prime. You also get free next day deliveries with all your Amazon products. If you've got Amazon Prime, of course.
We're not sponsored by them. We'd like to be, but we're not.
Yeah.
If you're listening also, can you please sponsor us?
Yeah, I don't want to go on too long because but the one last point, talking about emotional significance and using sort of, you know, poignance. If you look at like what are the biggest film franchises at the moment? Marvel, right? You see how many superhero films are out right now. But if you look at those films, death in those films has no meaning. How many times have you seen characters like Loki in Thor? He dies like 4 times or 3 times, and he always comes back. There's a moment in the second one, I think, where he has this heartfelt confession to Thor about how he was a terrible brother, and he understands, and he's grown as a character, and he wants to move on, and like you're like, oh man, this is touching. Yeah, man, like Thor understands, and then he's just back. Like what if death doesn't mean anything? What's the point?
This is true.
And this is going back to Blood of the Ring. I just want there to be some point, some meaning, some. When I say grittier, I didn't necessarily mean like blood and gore. I just mean relevance and not almost toyish and cartoonish, more actual.
So it feels real.
If you're going to watch someone growing up, for instance, as Aragorn as a character, you want his growth to be real. There needs to be character growth. Yeah. So yeah, I'd love to see that. Yeah.
Interestingly, some of the top-rated and certainly most talked about Marvel films are the ones which have got a bit more consequence.
Which ones?
Black Panther.
I haven't seen it.
When you do, we'll do a podcast on that.
Okay.
It's great.
I've heard good things.
Fun film. It is basically The Lion King, but it is a great film. It is a great film.
Who are the hyenas? Okay, we'll talk about it.
We'll talk about another point.
Okay. If we're moving on.
I guess so. I mean, we're like an hour in. I suppose we can move on from the Lord of the Rings and the runtime and the things.
When we were talking before about the show, obviously Gabriel was looking at Lord of the Rings and we were looking at the Amazon take-up, but I actually looked at some of the other Amazon original shows because there's some really cool upcoming ones, and this isn't just to plug Amazon original shows. There are some really cool upcoming shows. So,
isn't there a pilot season? A couple of guys at work were saying that, and again, we might have missed it, but if it is coming up, Amazon do a pilot season where you can watch all these people put together the pilot episode. Mm-hmm. You watch them and you vote for the ones you want to make into a series.
Yeah, it's really I think it's a really quite a good democratic way of doing it.
Also a great way of saying you voted for this.
Yeah, exactly. Like, you better buy it. But like, I suppose Amazon, I don't know if it's lagged behind like Netflix, but like
in terms of output, maybe. But Netflix has gotten to the point where you're saturated.
Yeah, I think they've both, and obviously there's the pushback now from Cannes about Netflix originals aren't allowed in the film festival, which is ridiculous.
It's
odd. It just doesn't make sense. Like, it's snobber. You know what it reminds me of? It reminds me of when Stephen King in the 80s was writing like bestsellers like The Green Mile and The Shawshank Redemption, and the rest of the literary world basically classed him as like a populist writer, and you'll never get anywhere, and you're right. And how many of the greatest films have come out of his writings?
Well, he's a great writer.
And how many writers now copy him and have tremendous... And Netflix, I think, kind of pioneered the same way. Like, they've ploughed money into their own original shows, and Amazon have now done the same, and they're creating some great shows and TV films.
They're taking risks as well.
Yeah, and just doing it yourself and putting the money in and seeing what comes out and giving people the opportunity to be creative.
Not enough anime, but we'll talk about that another episode.
Yeah, anime will probably be definitely his own show. But so The Man in the High Castle is a bit of a personal favourite of mine because I like the history behind it.
That's what got me into Amazon original videos. I started watching something like Fear of the Walking Dead. Didn't like it. Mm-hmm. Didn't like the frame rate so much as well. Have you noticed? Maybe you guys listening as well. Some of the Amazon original shows, I think, are recorded at a much higher frame rate, which, from my eyes, being used to maybe a bit more of traditional cinema, it's unpleasantly smooth. I don't perceive life at 60 frames per second. So to watch it filmed is... Man, it's like I'm looking... Maybe pigeons will like it.
Did you feel like the guy in Interstellar, just like manipulating gravity?
Well, not quite. I wasn't quite yelling Murph into my screen, but give it another few episodes, maybe I would have done.
Yeah.
But The Man in the High Castle, I loved, but my biggest qualm, and I think this was, again, something about maybe their writers, it was one of their first shows, and maybe they hadn't quite gotten into their swing of writing main characters, but they were annoyingly incompetent at times.
Yeah.
Like, oh, I love these people, they're really great side characters, and like, oh, they're people who, you know, they've gotten to positions of power and you can tell they did it through wit and charm and cunning because they're all these things.
But they don't seem to possess those things now.
But the main characters don't. They do things which maybe... I don't think there was a case of I had too much dramatic irony, or even you could say, oh, well, in the universe of The Man in the High Castle, you know, all of these standard dupes are Western propaganda that wouldn't have existed.
Yeah.
No, I just did dumb stuff. And I was like, why are you doing this dumb stuff? But no, anyway, it's still fantastic setting, wonderfully realised. Hadn't read this book, so went into it very fresh. But the also the idea of good men and bad, well, good people and bad people on every single side was very interesting. Yeah,
especially with such a contentious issue. I mean, obviously we're talking about basically Nazis in America.
The Nazis, and also again, as someone British, I didn't realise sort of the viewpoints of the Japanese Empire.
Yeah.
And the uneasy truce that naturally settled because they couldn't control the entire states. Well, so they had a bit of a split down the middle.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of like, I mean, Philip K. Dick, I mean, is an amazing writer, but when I often sort of compared The Man in the High Castle to 1984, because in terms of the worldview, like separating the planet into these, you know, large vying states, I mean, is kind of the anti-1984 in terms of the powers that be, but America's been Oceania, has been consumed by the Japanese Empire and Nazism, and you've still got the Chinese sort of, they're subservient to the Japanese in most parts, but there's still sort of outlying areas, and these two superpowers are now vying. But I find it just a fantastic alternate history is generally quite interesting to talk about. I mean, yeah, there's reams of alternate history scenarios for World War II, and people that talk about like the British takeover of the Nazi takeover of Britain, or
the British takeover of Britain.
Yeah.
Coming soon to Amazon.
Making Britain again.
We've already going through that.
Yeah. Let's not talk about that. But yeah, I think I don't know. It just strikes me as, I can understand why they led with it as a flagship program, because it's a fantastic idea and it's a great author and you've got so much material. But yeah, there was a bit of cardboard nature to some of the characters. It didn't really. It's a great. I thought the first season was good.
I haven't seen the second one. I think by the end of the first one, like the second one had only just come out, and I was also feeling a bit like, again, having binge watched it, I felt like I needed a break.
Yeah.
Certainly, I think it was Julia and the young male lead was too much for me.
Yeah.
But no, I'm really annoyed now. I can't remember the names, but the German officer in New York, who was in, again, a hard position, because basically the Swedish dissenter who wanted his help, and sort of the difficulty he had to face with a son who, I think he had not leukemia, but some sort of terminal illness, and obviously being a Nazist eugenic state, that's not allowed, and he had to, as a father, does he do what's best for his kid, trying to ensure that his son survives, or does he give in to the regime, dilemmas. And also the Japanese guy in, I think it was San Francisco, sort of who's pulling a lot of strings, he was great. But fantastic show. What other fantastic shows have you seen on Amazon lately?
Well, a few, but last point is that I find it most interesting because you don't often see many shows where America is kind of controlled by an outside power.
America isn't America.
Exactly. That America, like within film, America has this like it can be destroyed, but aliens can wreck it.
But it's still America.
But the point is, it always either rises up, overthrows the overlord, but in The Man in the High Castle it doesn't, and that's kind of what I like about it. Like, it's a more #realistic view of like if something horrific happened, you can't always like.
And it's not the world hasn't ended; it's carried on.
Exactly, it's a changeover of politics.
Also having to live with it's carried on.
Yeah, you might not like the politics, but the world moves on. I think there's an element of transience in sort of nationhood that a lot of people these days don't realise. Like, the modern world is considered, it's been like this way forever.
Yeah.
But no, it hasn't. Like, the Holy Roman Empire was around for 1,000 years. It's not here now.
Is like Germany as it is today less than 100?
140 odd. Between 1860 and 1876, it fomented as a full nation between Prussia, Saxony, Bavaria, and Bohemia. But yeah, but the Holy Roman Empire was much more than Germany. It was obviously Austria and like Waschenschlitz.
Yeah, I was just thinking of like just some nations very young, some nations very. I know what you mean. It just feels like it's been the way it is since forever, and I can't imagine a time before the European Union, for example.
There are houses within a stone's throw of us right now that are older than the United States of America. Like, that's kind of...
I lived in one, and it was great. When I went to visit the States, I'd go to towns, and they'd say, this town's really old, man. It's like 50 or 60 years old.
Yeah.
It's 180. It's from around the time of the Civil War. I'd have to sit there and quietly think to myself, I'm from a town that predates your country twice over.
When you go to America, that's what I always find really interesting. When you have any kind of older shop or business or building, it always has the date on it. Because they're very proud of...
We know how old it is.
Yeah, like J.C. McGowan was going from 1896. It's like, yeah, that's 1896. My house is like built in the 1850s right now. Like, but they're very proud of it because, with that age comes wisdom, apparently. But it's more of a trusted brand. But anyway, so moving on, because there's a couple I really want to nail, and eventually I've got to go and pick up my my twin girls. So you'll be interested in this. King Lear.
Oh yeah.
Coming out 2018, co-production with the BBC for Amazon.
But it's a play. How do they make it a show?
With Anthony Hopkins as King Lear. And wait for it. Emma Thompson, Emma Watson, Chris Eccleston.
So, are you sure this just isn't a really lush put on of the play?
Mate, it is obviously adapted from the play, but it's like a mini-series. I think it's going to be fantastic.
I mean, I'll be honest, Anthony Hopkins is a very gifted and, very capable actor whose voice lends a certain charm to everything. Cool.
And bear in mind, if you think about this, it makes sense because he was in the Amazon advert a while back where Alexa lost their voice, wasn't he?
Oh, yes.
So this ties
I thought they were just cashing in on the
No, they weren't. That's what I mean. When you think back, clever. They'd obviously already gotten on board, and this is obviously relating into that.
Oh my gosh, what other Easter eggs are there?
Exactly. And okay, next one. So anyway, I think that's interesting, but it's up to you. One of the ones I'm really interested in is Cortez, Hernan Cortez. So Javier Bardem, one of my favourite actors,
right,
plays obviously amazing actor in Skyfall, is playing the part of Hernan Cortez on a road trip through Mexico, based on the plot of a 1960s film Montezuma. And this story, the story and the script and the screenplay have got like quite a bit of a legend behind them. Basically, this guy called what was his name? Dalton Trumbo, I think, or something. He created this script called Montezuma, which was going to be the story of Cortez.
Oh, I've heard of this.
Which was going to be played by Kirk Douglas. Like, it was going to be like a classic kind of Charlton Heston-esque film of Cortez rampaging through Central America and taking down the Aztecs and sort of. But it never got made. Yeah. And then in the 90s or the early 2000s, at some point, Steven Spielberg got his hand on the script.
Oh, wow.
And he was like, I'm going to make this film. And again, it never happened. And he adapted the script, and it got. I mean, now this is 50 years old. This script.
So hang on, a 50-year-old script touched by the hands of Spielberg has made its way to Amazon.
Exactly.
And Are you sure there isn't a film about this?
Exactly. And now they've got Javier Bardem, the confirmed playing the part of Cortez, and it's going to be like a 4. I can't remember. It's either 4-part or 10-part series that basically covers this story as like a historical. And I think it's going to be fantastic. It's got a huge budget. It's got like a lot of backing.
Kind of want to see him with a beard, if nothing else,
Yeah, there's a guy called what's his name? Steven Zylian. He's leading it. Oh, it's 4 episodes. It's a 4-episode miniseries, and he's going to be leading it. And it sounds fantastic, to be honest. It sounds really good. I love this kind of history stuff, like when it talks about Cortez, not Pizarro. Pizarro was not a nice guy. Same box as Columbus. Like, those are not people you want to
romanticize.
No, not at all.
I don't want to make Greatest Showman out of them.
No, their story is a whole different episode. But Hernan Cortez, he had his issues, and I'm sure he was not the greatest night guy. But he also did some amazing things, and if you might put him in the same class as some of the greatest people in history, like Alexander the Great or
that's
Marco Polo. I mean, they've already made a series about him.
That's big praise. Also, just the format of the mini-series, kind of something I wanted to... how are we doing for time? Okay, well, something that maybe we'll touch on next time, certainly on the topic of TV and certainly the shape of the quote-unquote television show nowadays, things like the mini-series and the return of one-off, because obviously... The Twilight Zone, I'm a massive fan of The Twilight Zone, and Black Mirror, which kind of took the anthology setup. So, yeah, maybe explore that a little bit.
Yeah.
Basically, Dan's got a life, and Kate...
I've got to get home to my 1.5-year-old twin girls.
And you guys might have to get back to whatever it is you were doing before listening to this.
Yeah, hopefully Googling film scripts for Lord of the Rings so that you can phone in and tell us or
writing. Absolutely write your own stuff. Something I cannot recommend enough. Sit down, have a go, watch mini-series that inspire you. Listen to motivational podcasts by ours truly.
Educate thyself.
Yeah. And we'll see you next time for another episode of undisclosed location.